Your child cannot read, they can memorize the memory verse and know what they've learned in the chapter. This book, Essential Stories, is for readers all the way through high school. It teaches the same things, but at the end of every chapter has study questions. This is the second edition. It's so much better than the first one because we got so many calls from parents who are using this as a homeschool tool. I have private schools now and homeschool groups that are using this to teach their American history. And so we put study questions at the end. This book not only teaches the history, but teaches about framers and founders that they don't get to learn about anywhere else. Who can tell me who was the first man to die in the Revolutionary War? It was a black man by the name of Crispus Attucks. Crispus Attucks was a freed slave who had become a whaler in the merchant marines. He heard an alarm. He ran on deck to see where the fire was, because that's usually what an alarm was, only to find out that it was not a fire, but his own government had taken up arms against his own people. He ran back below deck, got 55 of his shipmates, and came out and died so that we could have liberty. Here's a poem that's in the book. It says, "Honor to Crispus Attucks, who was leader in voice that day, the first to defy and the first to die with maverick car and gray. Call it riot or revolution, his hand first clenched at the crown. His feet were first in perilous place to pull the king's flag down. His breast was the first one rent apart, that liberty's stream might flow. Our freedom now and forever, his head was first laid low. Call it riot or revolution, mob or crowd as you may, such deaths have been seed of nations, such lives shall be honored for aye." How many of you have heard of a man named Ned Hector? Ned Hector was also a freed slave who had fought in the battles of Germantown and Brandywine, and when his troops were given the order to retreat, Ned Hector refused. He said, "The enemy shall not have my team." He ran back to get his horses and his weapons, and he said, "The enemy shall not have my team. I will save the horses or perish myself." Did you know that there were battalions of freed slaves that fought during the Revolutionary War? There were provisions in the states that said if you were a slave and you wanted to fight for liberty, you were a free man. Do you know that men gave their only free breath to die so we could have liberty? That poem said they'd be honored forever. How do we honor them today? We completely wipe them out of history. I cannot think of anything more racial and disgusting than to dishonor a man who has given his only free breath for me, all for a progressive agenda to keep people slaves. There's also a chapter in there about the women who gave more than the men so that we could have liberty. Can somebody tell me when women got the right to vote in this country? 1920-ish? Yeah? No. Women have always had the right to vote in this country. There's nothing in the Constitution that ever prevented women from voting. Women voted in this country until 1807, when corrupt politicians took that away. Go read the 19th Amendment, you'll see I'm telling you the truth. The 19th Amendment does not establish the right of women to vote. It recognizes that they have that right and says you can't take it away. There's so much that we have been taught in error, all part of the malignant and pernicious design. Now, if you can't come to my 5-hour workshop or you can't wait, I have DVDs. It's a 3-DVD set of the entire workshop. It's a live presentation. I don't do anything in the studio because it's just not the same. And it's chaptered out. This is actually at 5 hours plus. We had more time to do it, so there's some things in here that I don't always get into the workshops. I also have this book, Liberty First, because people always ask me, what do we do? Right? How do we get this fixed? Well, these are 10 chapters. One thing per chapter that I think that we can do as everyday citizens to help turn this country back to its foundational principles. The understanding of separation of church and state in its proper application. Things that we can do without forming a super PAC, without getting a grant from the Koch brothers. How you apply your life, fortune, and sacred honor. So I want to thank you for your time and attention, and I want to leave you with the words of Winston Churchill. Let me ask you something. Do we have anybody here under the age of 25 today? Stand up if you're under the age of 25. Yes. Mentally, psychologically does not count. Look, I want you to look in their eyes. Because this is my motivation. Right? This is who we're supposed to be purchasing liberty for. When you go through life now, every day, and you lock eyes with young people, the only question that should come to your mind now is, what have I done to secure their liberty today? And if you say nothing, then you have to understand what you've condemned them to. You've condemned them to purchase back a gift that should have been purchased by you. And they won't have the ability to do it at the ballot box. They will do it with their blood. And I don't know about you. I can't be responsible for that. And so if you leave here unchanged, if you leave here and don't start fighting for liberty every single day of your life, now I'm not saying 24/7, 2 hours a day, do something. But I guarantee you when 2 hours will become 4 hours, will become 6 hours. Because there'll be so much to do. Don't leave here and do nothing. Because if you do nothing after you leave here, then I just spoke to an empty room. Winston Churchill said this, and I want you to think about this with these young people here. Still, if you will not fight for the right when you can easily win without bloodshed, if you will not fight when your victory will be sure and not too costly, you may have to fight with all the odds against you and only a precarious chance of survival. But there may yet even be a worse case. You may have to fight when there is no hope of victory, because it is better to perish than to live as slaves. See, we won't make that decision, but they will. So all I'm asking you to do is to stand and put liberty first. Stand with them and give them the strength to carry on where we should be carrying on as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, KrisAnne. I'm going to echo, please sit down. We're not quite done yet. I'm going to echo a couple of things that KrisAnne said.